Welcome to Books Are Good Medicine, a podcast sponsored by the Shakopee Mdewakanton Sioux community, featuring books and other Native American-focused teaching resources. I'm your co-host, Allison Waka. Today I'm joined by Shirley Sneve. Shirley is an enrolled member of the Ponca Tribe in Nebraska and the Vice President of Broadcasting with ICT News, formerly Indian Country Today. She is also a senior producer with IndiJ Public Media. Previously, Shirley directed Vision Maker Media, the largest funder of Indigenous media for PBS stations. In this episode, we talk about how educators can use the news as a resource in the classroom and tips for teaching media literacy. I hope you enjoy this episode. Hi, Shirley.
Hi.
Welcome to the podcast. It's so nice to have you here. And you're usually the one doing the interviewing, but I get to interview you today.
We'll see how that goes.
I'll do my best.
Okay, great.
So why don't you just tell me a little bit about yourself and your career?
Well, I'm Shirley Sneve. My mom is a member of the Sioux tribe. I'm a member of the Ponca Tribe in Nebraska. And I grew up mostly in South Dakota. Mom and Dad taught at the Flandreau Indian School, and this was in the 60s and 70s. I graduated from Flandreau Public because, the boarding schools really went through a lot of policy changes. And one of the policies they had was that the children of the employees could not go to the Flandreau Indian School. So all of us Indian kids had to go to the public school, except our senior year, they changed that. And only one of us decided, and that was Diane Wakeman, decided to go to the Indian school for her last year. And then I went to South Dakota State University in Brookings, both where my parents went, so I didn't feel like I really had a choice. I graduated. Well, I started out in music, and I realized my career goals were kind of dumb. I wanted to be a professional bass clarinet player, but I didn't want to leave South Dakota. So how do you?
Yeah.
It didn't make any sense. Right. And then I always liked to write. And a lot of people think that my interest in journalism came from my mom because she's a writer. Yeah. But my father was the faculty advisor for the yearbook and their little newspaper at the Flandreau Indian School. And so I got interested in that. And then fascinated with the darkroom back in the day before digital cameras. And so I learned photography. And then I got my degree in journalism from South Dakota State, minors in American Indian Studies and music and German.
Oh, wow. So, oh, my goodness.
The German thing was easy because I took it in high school. So I had that background. And then they said, oh, Shirley, You're such a good student. Well, I was a good student because I already had, 2-3 years of it in school. We have one seat left on this trip to Germany. Would you like to go? I said, Mom and Dad, can you afford this? Can you afford to send me? And it was like $1,000.
Yeah.
Back in the day, that was a little bit more money than it was now, but still, what a deal.
Yeah.
And I got 6 credits of A's. And, that was, I had to take 2 more classes. And that was how I got a minor in German. So I started out working in newspapers. The Del Rapids Tribune, they hired me, a classmate knew I was graduating and went to work there. And what was interesting about that small town newspaper, and it's just north of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, for people that aren't familiar with the geography, really immersed myself in small town politics. And I, knew several people already that lived there just from growing up in eastern South Dakota. We played them in basketball, football, and stuff. And I called every race in that election that year.
Oh.
And it was Reagan that was running. And, I even down to the school board, I was able to call it. It's the last time I was able to call the election because then I went to work for South Dakota Public Broadcasting in Vermillion, South Dakota. That's the ivory tower, little tiny ivory tower in that, in that town of, 12,000, I think. But anyway, it was just really interesting. And now coming out of this election, it was interesting results because of where I am as a Native American in Nebraska, in the liberal part of Nebraska. I did not call the election correctly.
So tell me more about your work at ICT.
We have a newscast, and it started, actually, I'm going back and looking at old tape, old digital files, because Mark Trahant, who started this whole thing, is stepping back. And so we're doing a show in a couple weeks to celebrate his career and show where we were when we started in 2019, and where we are now. It actually started as a Lakota Times on the Pine Ridge Reservation with Tim Gallego. And then he sold it 43 years ago. And then he sold it to the Oneida Tribe of New York.
Okay.
And that's when they ran it, that really slick magazine. I don't know if you remember.
I loved that magazine.
I know, I loved it too.
I really, really did. I looked forward to it. And this is, back, I was substituting teaching. And I got a long-term position in the library of the Menominee Indian High School. And that was one of the perks. I get to sit and read and get paid for the magazine. And it was just, all the kids really loved it. And the pictures, it was so well done. Yeah.
It really was.
Yeah. Before social media really took off yet. It wasn't. And
that was the failed business model, is that Ray Hellbretter, who was the chairman of the tribe for years, that was his baby. And you notice every issue started out with a letter from Ray, the chairman. And, he had a lot to say with the journalism that was going on in there, but it was wonderful.
It was.
And I miss it too. Yeah. In fact, a lot of people think it's still going on.
Oh.
But they went dark actually because of the business model. And I think it was just really hard to, as it is now with print media, to convince advertisers to, to go there. And even now with the website, we do rely on advertising on the internet, on the digital side, but we distribute to public broadcasting. And so we have to have underwriting, not advertising. So the difference between underwriting, if you listen to public radio and public television, they say, sponsored in part by whatever, Goff Media, Goff Public, and they might give a website, but they're not going to say Goff Public is the best company in the world, and they have the sale going on. They don't say things like that.
Okay.
And so it's a neutral kind of thing. But I worked for Vision Maker Media for a long time.
Yes.
In Lincoln, Nebraska. That's how I got to Nebraska. And we did documentaries for PBS. Did a lot of documentaries for PBS. And in fact, it's the largest funder of media, Native American, Alaska Native, in the country for PBS stations, for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. And I left, moved to Minneapolis. I was going to be Grandma Shirley and take care of my grandchildren, but that didn't quite work out. And so I emailed Mark Trahant and a number of other people thinking, well, I'll just consult my way into retirement. And he called me back and he said, please come work for me.
Oh.
And so I said, well, okay, I don't know anything about news because I've been in documentary, for all these years. I mean, I did news at the beginning of my career eons ago. And so I said, okay, I can do this. And I had some transferable skills.
Just a little.
And, started working on the newscast, the ICT newscast. Patty Telehungva was our first anchor. And then Aaliyah Chavez came and was with us for 3 years. And she just recently went to KOAT in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Oh, Albuquerque.
Yeah.
My second home.
Right. That's right. Yeah. So anyway, and what I do on the show is I interview people. And that's what I did at the beginning. And then I produced the Friday show. But we've had some, changes in the structure. And now I'm not in management anymore. I just produce.
Okay.
And that's, I'm an elder, and I've just really been enjoying that part of journalism. And then I learned to video edit, so I know Premiere Pro enough to be dangerous.
I love it.
The last time I edited was 3/4-inch machine to 3/4-inch machine. I mean, that's how long ago it was.
Yeah.
And I think, I used to think that it's a toss-up whether or not that was an efficient use of time or not. And I say that because you make an edit and you have to set it up for so long that you want to make sure you have a good edit. Well, with Premiere Pro, if you don't like it, you just push a couple buttons and do it again and again and again and again. You don't like the audio level? Tweak that again, cut it together again.
Oh,
you
could get,
Yeah, it can be a real time suck.
Yeah.
But we're all under deadlines. And so,
sometimes you just
I'm a lot more efficient than I used to be. In fact, when I first started, I've only been editing for a couple years. Daniel Herrera's was our intern, and now he's one of our journalists on the staff. And I said, Dan, can I just watch you edit and just, sit down and show me how to do some things? He goes, okay. And so I sat down and he started out explaining this and this and this. And pretty soon, I think he forgot I was there.
Yeah.
Because then pretty soon, both of his hands are like this. Wow. And he stopped and he said, oh, I guess I was supposed to tell you what I was doing. And I said, well, no, Daniel, this is fine. I can see what, I can see the buttons and stuff and everything. But, and now I can edit like that.
Oh,
2 hands going at once.
I don't know.
I'm still not that great. Yeah. I mean, it takes a long time to be good at that product. Yeah. And I didn't go to school for it. Mm-hmm. So I just learned it on the fly. And my staff is used to, can we hop on a Zoom so you can show me what I'm doing wrong? And so that they will. But so I've been doing it for over 4 years now.
Oh, wow.
And I just get to call people up and interview them. And it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? That's what I really enjoy about the podcast and learning different people's points of views and their experiences. And it's a whole nother version of storytelling. And so tell me, do you have any favorite documentaries from Vision Maker that might be great for the classroom or anything?
I just went to a screening of Man Killer again, Wilma Man Killer.
Okay, yes.
It's Native American Heritage Month, and there is this wonderful independent film house in Omaha, Nebraska called Film Streams. And they have the Dundee Theater. They have 2 places now. And the Dundee Theater had a screening and brought in the filmmakers. Oh. And I had just gotten off the road. We were in Palm Springs together. Right. And so I got off the road. I think it was 11 o'clock at night. And then the screening was at 2 o'clock in the afternoon the next day. And I thought, I'm going to go because I love the filmmakers. And, when you executive produce a movie like that, we worked on that thing for 10 years.
Oh, wow.
And I knew Wilma Man Killer. And so it was... touched me personally to work on a project like that because she was just such an amazing leader.
She was a force.
Yeah. Yep. Wilma Man Killer was the first, are they chiefs, principal chief of the Cherokee Nation? Some of them are presidents, but I think they're chiefs there. And she had a long career and a very, very interesting life. And the documentary is just a real tribute to her and her leadership.
Oh, that sounds good. So you can get it on Vision Maker?
Actually, I think you can get it on Netflix.
Oh, really?
And you can order the DVD. And I'm not quite sure what the streaming options are, but you can get it on DVD.
Okay.
And it, like I said, it streams on Netflix. And I don't know if it's in the other collections, that are available to educators.
Yeah,
but
they do.
It's easy to find.
Yeah. Netflix has the educators little website thing too that they have. Yeah. Oh, that's good to know. Well, thank you. So talking about news resources for the classroom, what other ones would you suggest for Native news?
ICTnews.org.
You don't say.
And I say that because we have reporters all across the country, and we have reporters from many different tribes, and the age range of our reporters. We have youngsters, just out of college. In fact, we've even had some high schoolers report for us.
Oh, okay.
All the way to old people like me. And so you've got that generational perspective, but you've also got that tribal perspective too. So we have reporters from Alaska to Washington, D.C.
And so is that like a YouTube format, or tell me about, like, is there podcasts? Like, how would it be set up?
It's a news site. It's ictnews.org, and it's all digital. It's a digital newspaper.
Okay.
So there's long form journalism. We try to cover as much as we can. We have a few that I would say have beats, like we have a political beat with Polly Danette-Claw. She's based in Washington, D.C. We have an arts beat.
Oh.
And so that's a weekly column. And then we have an international indigenous news column that goes out every week.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. Well, that sounds fun.
And then our stuff, the ICT newscast is streaming there. And we also pick those things apart into, 3 to 5 minute long episodes and share those through social media, through Instagram and Facebook primarily. Attention span, for
that's shorter.
Some people these days, 3 minutes is a huge time commitment.
Isn't it? Isn't that crazy? I just feel like it used to, 3 minutes used to be, I don't know, my son now doesn't even know what ads are, like commercials. I think we were watching something and there was like a hotel room, I don't know. And then, he couldn't pause. He couldn't pause the TV. It was
funny.
And he was just like, why not?
Well, the ICT newscast is distributed on PBS stations. It's on 80% of the PBS station.
Oh,
it's on FNX. When we started this in 2020, the newscast, it was a daily show because nobody cared about production values during the pandemic. You just turned on your Zoom camera and then you talked. Well, these days, since we're out of the pandemic, they expect higher production qualities. So we're on the road more. And we're now a weekly show. We started that this fall. In September, we started to be a weekly show instead of a daily show.
Oh.
So our segments are higher production values, and we were doing more thematic shows. Like we had one on just that covered the boarding schools. We had one on suicide prevention. We had one on the arts, one on sports. And of course, we've had a lot of election coverage.
Well, that sounds like you could create a lesson plan just on the website.
In fact, we keep track of what, who searches for what.
Oh, okay.
And we have a top 10 list of, and it's in November for Native American Heritage Month, where most of them are searched. But, and what's funny is for some reason around this time of the year, fry bread, we have an article on making fry bread. And I think there's 5 or 6 different tribes, that we've got the recipes from the Navajos.
Yeah.
As a Lakota and a Ponca person, I hate to say this, but the Navajos make better fry bread.
I love to hear it.
But I worked out in Massachusetts for a while, and we went to the powwows out there, and they had pumpkin fry bread.
Oh, really?
It's really good. It's really good. And then I thought, well, how come you don't have this on the? Well, they didn't know about it because the Western tribes are putting it together. And then I said, I Googled it, of course.
Yeah.
I should say another word than I searched for it. And found out that it's actually Seneca that came up with a pumpkin fry bread.
That sounds so good. I
really
just love
good.
Pumpkin stuff. I really, really do.
And you don't put pumpkin spice in it.
My favorite, I don't know. Have you heard of the Fancy Navajo? She's a a food blogger. She just came out with a cookbook.
Oh,
and
cool.
I'm dying to get my hands on it. But she has pumpkin cookies, and
Those are good.
my whole entire family agrees on that the best cookies. And but yeah, pumpkin anything, especially this time of year. But that sounds really, really good.
Back to news sites. There are still a lot of tribes that invest in their local newspapers.
Mm-hmm.
I just interviewed Lori Edmo yesterday. She's the editor of the Showban News out of Idaho.
Oh, okay.
They do a really good job. And a lot of these will pick up other stories from other tribes, and they use a lot of our content too. Native News Online is another one that that's really good. And Navajo Times, of course, still does a really good job.
Mm-hmm.
But we read all of those because of the regional coverage that they have. And we also work with the PBS NewsHour. Their offices are right next to ours in Arizona.
Okay.
So we've gotten a good relationship with them and actually got a grant from the National Science Foundation to do some climate change coverage. So we've been doing that, and it's been on their website and on their air.
Climate is such a huge
topic. It is.
topic.
And it really does affect Native people more than others because of our land base.
Mm-hmm.
And lithium is one of the big lithium and copper are two of the metals that are used in electronic vehicles.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, it's really a trade-off. Yeah, you want to have electronic vehicles, but at what expense?
Right.
And, some of the lithium mines are on sacred sites, and they've been losing those court cases to stop the mining.
Oh.
And I don't think it's going to get any better. The other thing that I found out that electronic cars are heavier, and so they're ripping up the roads faster.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have
So you
thought of
wouldn't
that.
think of all these, the ramifications of how it's all going to come down.
I think tribes here in Minnesota too are worried about so many things, different things, invasive species and mining. And I just recently heard, I forget who said it, but there was a tribal leader, and he was talking, and he said that, a lot of people can just up and move, y'all can up and move, but we have our land and we have to stay within these boundaries. We can't move. We can't follow the deer or follow, So I think that's it's going to be something that all our tribal leaders are going to have to come together on and figure it out. And we as community are going to have to follow suit and see what we can do to make the world a better place and protect the resources. So yeah, climate, I think, will be something that your news will be covering in the foreseeable future.
And, tribes have leftover lands, in a lot of cases. When you look at the Great Sioux Nation, which was this huge tract of land, in the middle of the country, and then how they discovered gold in the Black Hills, and so that shrunk it, and it shrunk it, and shrunk it, and shrunk it, all those lands of the tribes. What do they have that they can make a living on? When you look at some of these rural reservations in Minnesota as well, how do you create your infrastructure that's going to make it a wonderful place to live, and it's going to have opportunities for your children?
Right.
And suicide and drugs are a huge issue across the country. And why?
Yeah.
And missing and murdered Indigenous women and relatives, and why? And, those are hard questions for tribes to deal with. You want to be supportive, and you want to be respectful, and you want the best for your children. And so it's tough. And, in the news industry, I think those are the things that we're really concerned about, is how do we report the news in an honest way that's going to be respectful to our relatives and remember our ancestors as well. And that's what makes the kind of work that ICT does different than mainstream media is, and I like to think of that scene in Reservation Dogs where she's got all her ancestors behind her. Oh. And that's what we're carrying forward is the legends and the relationships that we have on Turtle Island.
For future generations.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So when leaders make decisions, they say, we're making decisions now for the 7 generations that come forward. When I make a decision today, I'm thinking about my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren. And so I think that's a different way that we report the news. And sitting in the newsroom with Mark Trahant, we're in our 60s. I won't say exactly where we are in our 60s, but, we've been in the business for a long time. And we remember things that the younger the thing that comes to my mind, we did a documentary at Vision Maker Media on the Blackfeet flood of 1964 in Montana. It was devastating. And it has changed that tribe forever. And I don't know if the youngest generations now that weren't born then understand why things are the way they are. Is because of that point in time when they had this devastating flood.
And that's what you're bringing forward, the past stories.
Exactly.
So people now can know. If you were to tell a teacher, one thing about Native news, for the classroom, do you have anything you'd like to say to them?
PBS has a lot of resources. The PBS Learning Media, they call it. And they've got free lesson plans for everyone. And the films that we did at Vision Maker Media, we had teachers' guides and, resources, curriculum that they could use in the classroom. I think about Rumble, which is about the history of American Indians and rock and roll.
Yes.
Stevie Van Sant put a lot of money into that curriculum. So it's gorgeous, and, it's just wonderful the way people will take that and invest in that in the classroom. So that's a good way to go. And, our search engine is fairly robust on the website to be able to go and search on topics. But I wish teachers would pay more attention to their local tribes and use the local tribes as a resource in the classroom. Invite speakers from the local tribes in to talk to the students.
There are, here in Minnesota, there are quite a few different tribal newspapers, tribal radio.
The Circle, you've got the newspaper here.
Yep, here in the metro. Yeah, of course. And that's online. So, and in print. So
it is still in print.
Still in print. I love it though. I love, having the paper version. So a little background on how we met. It was the book club. My sister ran for, 14 some years. And I just, I'm so honored to have you here today, and that books brought us together so many years ago. And here we are on a book podcast now together. And it's just so wonderful. You were so, it was so great to get to know you, especially over Zoom. When you moved to
Pandemic City.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that really got us through, connecting and seeing you. And so I'm really thankful for you to be here today. I really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate the work that you and your sister do. It's just been an honor to be part of your life and all of the wonderful things you do for tribal people, not just here, but all over the country. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. You're going to make me cry. Well, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Books Are Good Medicine. Subscribe to our channel on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. You can also visit our website, booksaregoodmedicine.com, to find episodes and resources, or to send us a comment. This podcast is sponsored by the Shakopee, Mdewakanton Sioux community and produced by IndiJ Public. Our theme music is Stomp Dance by Blue Dog. The opinions expressed on the Books Are Good Medicine podcast by its co-hosts and guests are their own in their personal capacities and do not necessarily reflect the views of any organization with whom they are affiliated or of the podcast sponsor.